to actually have a strategy. You need to have tools. You need to buy something. You actually need to pay money to get tools that you can, where you can be sure that you are at least within the boundaries of GDPR and other security.
Or whatever good it is at a certain time and timestamp it. Because what you actually need is to integrate it into your systems, and also so you get customer declarations, performa invoices, all of these documents. Instead, the people in the back room said, oh, we have 6 times more to do because the data set in this bloody blockchain setup doesn't match our ERP system, so I have to manually extract the data and manually put them in. Thank you, Magnus, blockchain is great. Well, if we do this one fast forward now and look into how, for example, SAP, as one of the largest ERP system vendors in the world, has now integrated as just one step of example of doing stablecoins, i.e. a token that is pegged towards US dollars or euros or whatever. They have then legally cleared which tokens you can use. So we issue an invoice with the key, everything according to local standards. Then the token you are going to use for payments is legally cleared, so you just click pay invoice directly. And that turns the matter around, that the person that is doing this one doesn't need a PhD in blockchain or understand what a token is. It's just integrated into a system that works. And if you then turn it around and say, hey, we're actually paying our invoices directly now, we can do it 24/7, but if we do it then, we want to negotiate on the price because that's also a liquidity matter. And on the other side, you can, if you have important VAT or duties, you can deduct these ones suddenly immediately, and you tend to believe whatever the masses are saying. So that has nothing to do with blockchain or crypto or technology. It's just pure stupidity from the human nature of being a human being. Exactly, and no one who can actually verify it because it's not enough people out there who you rather choose to jump one in because you have a trusted party who do stuff. So that's what we see all over. You follow the masses.
That was my
Yes, kind of the same line, but I wouldn't call it invisibility, maybe. You said that the question was how can we work with technology faster? For example. I think as human beings, okay, I have a background in psychology, so I'm on the ethics and the leadership, so I'm going to talk from that context, from that background, right? So, yeah, so I think faster is, it relates to efficiency, which is great, like we're using the AI technology and everything to be more efficient, but I would say that we are a little bit obsessed with being faster at doing things, and we're skipping the part of the let's think about the ethics, the values, the purpose. How are we going to address, how are we going to use this technology to have more efficiency, for example? Yeah.
So if we look into call it the ESG hype that will come, we're not even close to see the ESG hype of digital product passporting and whatnot, and you have to improve source of origin to food, to groceries, to clothing, to materials, to whatnot. And everyone is verifying their own data. Because we're using IBM, of course we can trust them, they have verified it, so that's in the system. Why do you need a blockchain? You don't need a blockchain then. And the ironic part then is, as I said, you need human beings in there. So not necessarily human beings per se, but you cannot just verify your input data that is shed in, shed out. So normally, they just put in their own sensor and say, yeah, it's verified through our trusted third-party IT provider. But if, say, EY is in there with a sensor and KPMG or Deloitte or PwC or whatever, a competitor is in there also, then you can suddenly start to trust the data a little bit more. And that's where, when, for example, I did a project with Norwegian Fashion Hub back in 2018, we looked into the pure hype of blockchain and track and trace for sustainability matters. These guys are even worse than the airline industry in terms of emission. So there I said, we went in with the ESG team and said we need to verify every data point by 3 independent parties. This is when we can start to trust the data. So what I think we will see is that all politicians or whatever, they say, oh, ESG, oh, the digital product passport, fantastic, you verified, oh, even on the blockchain, my God, Innovation Norway comes running with money to you, right? But again, you have to redo the whole thing and have the trusted data.
And the other one also says, I'll call it the chat, and
finance, logistics, especially auditing, compliance, public sector, municipal administration, and etc.
Those are
So one here also says surprisingly untouched is also the legal industry in itself, and there is where the lawyers will not get unemployed by the first case, but the majority of the report is drafted by AI instead of a bunch of paralegals. So that's where it changed the whole mantra of the industry, that you don't necessarily get the training from being at the law firm. I see that myself, that previously we got reports in that were like, can you review the whole thing or make a draft? Spend 70 hours or 700. Well, now it's, I have a draft for you. Can you just review it? I guess you can do that in 2 hours. So that changes the mantra of how you also build up a new generation. And that's also a call for concern in terms of how it's going when you look into the legal industry.
But that's even those tasks that you're mentioning now are the difficult tasks. Because if you're looking at the really easy tasks for the lawyer, especially the lawyer assistants, I mean, it can be basic things like everything from translating to take a look at Norwegian. I mean, the oil fund. How are they using this? They say they own shares in 9,000 companies. And they need to be part of the General Assembly of all these companies every year. They get loads of information in different languages that they need to translate into Norwegian, and then they need to make...
That is at least what we basically day-to-day deal with the Norwegian defense.
Any comments?
I don't want to get into ethical things. Then you say no ethical thing, and I'm like,
Okay, guys.
Sure.
Excitement, we don't want to get into that.
I mean, and we should.
We
But
should.
let's look at.
We don't want to be quoted on. That's basically what we're saying.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. I thought we shouldn't. Anyway.
You don't want to have it on record.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't want that.
Okay. So next question.
You know, to add to it, I think it's also down to the level of surveillance also. You don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to understand what's happening, and you can just take it out of, call it armed forces per se, but just leave it out to customs authority. When they, I can't remember how many years ago when they signed the Palantir, the agreement there, and people were surprised they were stopped when they were heading on the Svinesund to buy alcohol and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, how did we catch you? Well, we just screened the whole of fucking Facebook, and there you had written in a closed group, hey, I'm going to Svinesund, should I bring anything for you? And it's like, yeah, we got it. And it's like these type of things where you lift it to a level that they go into closed groups also.
Yeah.
So I think it's an important, call it privacy issue towards that we need to take a stand in the same way as we need to lift it over to my industry again to say the CBDs is central bank digital currencies. Should we have them or not? Because we're moving slowly without anyone paying notice to it, sort of saying, in general, or raising their voices towards this one. We're just letting it happen. So I think it was interesting that Morten Søberg, he is the communication director for SpareBank 1, and also part of the intermediary board of the Norges Bank, who raised this one even 2 years ago in an article in I think it was called Dagens Næringsliv and Finansavisen, and said this is the time for us to speak up regarding the CBDC. Otherwise, this will just sneak straight into it and be a surveillance tool. I myself, as a board member here, cannot say that we are pro or come towards this one at this moment. We need to have a discussion surrounding it. So I'm probably more scared personally towards when you combine the different authorities' capabilities of merging this data to what this will end up as a silent product compared to anything else.
Just quickly on the privacy issue, you mentioned there's an issue of people being caught writing things in public closed groups, and how is that really privacy driven, and how used to are we getting to considering Facebook, Instagram, or the social media platforms as our own and our own closed off space? And how would that, do you think that could be an issue also in the military space, that we are too confident and too comfortable where we stand in posts? And
Absolutely. As I said, I think people in general are stupid.
Yeah.
So I don't mean it directly towards anyone, but just saying in general that people are lazy and seeks the easiest way out always.
But are we in a place where we're so comfortable and so used to being able to think that this is our own private space,
Yeah.
that it should never be considered anything other than a private space?
You know, I'm not saying it personally, but I think, like you say, people in general are of that perception.
To do for, all right. I think sometimes we are not asking the right questions in terms of this, because I think the questions are very product oriented or service oriented or future oriented, but without being thoughtful. So yeah, I think we need to learn to ask better questions. Yeah, to think a little bit more in terms of human-centered futures and not just technology-centered futures. But this is something that I think is very individual. And I don't know if we are conscious enough to actually, I have to do my inner work. No, it's how can I be more efficient? How can I be more faster? So, yeah.
Shouldn't it be binary?
I have a short comment here. That would be way easier to do if the laws and rules would be written shorter, more clean, shorter way. Then you would actually read the license agreement of the thing.
Or we still need the ChatGPT to.
Or something like
it.
it.
We need the time also. You know, this is the thing again. We want to go faster. But yeah, I don't know, how many of you here have actually read the whole agreements that you sign, the whole thing? Yeah, good. I'm not saying, great.
I'm new in Norway.
So you have, me too, I'm on the same stage. But what I mean is that we need time, we need space, and this is an anxiety issue. And again, I'm coming from my background, I know you all from IT and everything, but anxiety is actually one of the biggest issues. Mental health is one of the biggest issues. And apparently this is just about IT, innovation, digital, Norway, blah, blah, blah. But, this is human. Anxiety is human. Not having the time or not feeling that I have the time to actually read through the agreements of blah, 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 or whatever other reason we might have. Is also part of how are we creating the future and the digital future, right? So again, I'm gonna go back to that. Yeah. Sorry.
I have a short question for you actually, because when you're mentioning that mental health is one of the biggest issues, how was it 1,000 years ago during the Viking Age? How was the mental health problem then? Was it different, or did they just didn't have time for it?
They had a lot of time apparently to do whatever they wanted. There was not in our language. Okay, so the world is created also around language, around the conversations that we're having. The Vikings were not having conversations. How do you feel about?
Don't you think so?
Well, I don't know. Based on the actions, I think they were more impulsive. So I'm not so sure, but maybe we cannot ask them, right? But I would say that their personality was more impulsive. Also.
Isn't that also kind of a way of expressing your feelings?
Yeah,
You just dumbed
for
it down, shortened it, and made it so that it's a one-word syllable. How do you feel? Good, bad, more than celebrating, mourning?
Yeah, and well, thank you for that, because actually, if you think about it. Because we are in this fast-paced culture now, or
is it fast-paced, or is it just a culture of wanting to do more in lesser time?
Yeah.
Meaning that we do everything at the same pace.
We want to do more, but there are also other things that we're forgetting, like rituals. Rituals to more, when we had COVID, for example. That's another context, right? But there were so many losses, and we had our rituals and everything, but there's a lot of people who are still, the society is still grieving in those kind of things. And yes, it is true, they have these rituals. Maybe we need to ask ourselves, are we having the time to get enough rituals to process our feelings, our emotions, or to get more time to think about it. I know that some people are doing it, but that doesn't mean that that everybody's doing it, and then mental health is not an issue. It is an issue.
100%.
I have 2 points to add, both to the issues of privacy and mental health. I think somewhere as you mentioned very nicely, like in the earlier time, people used to bring out these emotions. They used to put it out. If they were feeling lost, they used to actually mourn for it. If they were happy, they used to celebrate. And then there was a time when everything was getting revolutionized from 2000s, and people were actually just was getting into the internet era, and then there came a time when Facebook and everything was in place, and people just in between had the time that they have to just show that they are really, really happy.
So, okay, continue your topic about surveillance. Can AI be helpful for cybersecurity industry? Is it enemy or a friend? And probably you know some cases about that.
It has been like one of the cases that we have been developing, though it is sort of NDA, so I'll just shed some light on it, of the facial recognition, that when we actually find the people, though they are not very convicted cases in Norway about knowing the people, or people who are coming from different countries and just living here without actually committing, maybe they have committed some crime, let's say in India or maybe some other country. So one of the things that we're also working is with the facial recognition. So there, wherever we have the cameras, we can actually match the features, but again, we cannot implement that practically. Reason being, we cannot, of course, invade the privacy or maybe the GDPR violating that cannot be done. So this is one of the things that we can actually use to capture criminals or suspects who are coming from different countries and staying here as refugees or with whatever tax. But again, that cannot be done just considering like what the GDPR and how it is actually going to invade the privacy of the common people. So yeah, that is one of the things that we noticed in Norwegian defense.
An example of where this is being used in China, for example, is for crowd control. I mean, you use AI just to survey the crowd all the time, and that means that you can send out the police before something happens, instead of after the incident.
So you think it's good or bad?
I'm not going to comment on that. I just said that's how it is. No, of course. If you're looking at it from the EU perspective, it's illegal because it will actually be in breach of the AI Act.
But just look at it in Norway during COVID. You know, it's not about AI, it's about data points in general, where the authorities, you know, I was down at our summer house at Vale, close to Sweden. And there they sent a text message out to everyone. We see that our base station has registered now 8,947 devices. Normally we only have 2,400. We ask all the fucking Oslo people to get the fuck home, otherwise we will go and find you. That's what they're doing. And by the way, they installed electronic water meters in all summer houses. Do you think they watched this one? Hell yeah, they did. And in this kind of way, they're using the data for a totally other purpose that I have not consent towards. But we say, oh, this is fine because it's for the AS of Norway and everyone is fine with it. But I did a interesting exercise with a friend of mine who used to work with Visa. And I said, this was during COVID. And I said, I have a hypothesis surrounding that people of high net worth are more updated towards, call it, the whole complexity of the system.